Welcome to Shaken and Disturbed, everybody. I am Father God Daryn Carp here with Mother God John Thrasher. He's in a time warp. It's mid-January. You are the person who doesn't take the wreath off the door until like
Well,
until the Ides of March.
listen, if you are a subscriber to Patreon, you'll know that I just opened my gift from Darren on this
Yes.
week's
Okay. So
NMR
we're living in
episode.
that. We're
I'm
living in that
living
time warp.
I'm living weeks behind. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then you're not late on my gift by a month. You're only late by three
By
weeks.
a few hours at this point.
Right.
Listen, I'm living
Exactly.
in an eternal Christmas. Let me live my life, okay?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, guys, good to see you on YouTube. Everywhere else, I am in New York this week, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone to reach out about obviously what's happening in Los Angeles and the wildfires. It has been devastating, horrendous, unimaginable,
Yeah.
incomprehensible, all the words. We've had some friends lose all of their things, and
Mm,
it's just tragic to watch the landscape just be utterly shattered. Like two
right.
Manhattans are just basically gone. But
Yeah.
thank you to everyone who reached out. It's obviously been a mixture of like good and bad stuff that's happened these past 2 weeks in my life. So it's just been a
Right.
lot, but I'm very thankful and grateful that Nadine and I are okay. So thank you to everyone for just reaching out. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And I
Thank you.
mentioned this on NMR as well. And I wanted to say thank you for those of you who are friends and listeners, and even some of my family who reached out to ask about Darren. I mentioned this before, I was like your spokesperson for a little while there, Darren, with some of my people on my end. But I hope you didn't mind me kind of answering for
No,
you.
of course
But
not. I talked to
you were giving
you.
updates too, by the way. So
Yeah, I was trying to give updates as best I could, but obviously it's still going on. And I
yeah,
am now
sadly.
on the other coast, which feels good to breathe better air, but it
Yeah,
just
right.
feels, yeah, we're going to see how I'll have updates in the future, but thank you to everybody.
Yeah,
Really
love
appreciate
that.
it.
Thank you for that, Darren, for that update. And thank you for continuing to do the show through all of this
Of
because
course.
it's a lot to ask. Well, guys, let's get right into this week's episode. That's our little kind of like housekeeping right at the top.
Yes.
I'm excited about this one because it has to do, Darren, it takes place throughout Appalachia. And as you know, I grew up in Appalachia, the
Yes.
Appalachian Mountain Range. And I lived in New York for quite a while, and now I'm living back in Pittsburgh, where, I'm right in the thick of it up here in Pittsburgh. So here we go. Let's get into this week's episode. So, in the winter of 1995, this murder shocked this small Appalachian city known as Knoxville, Tennessee. Many of us know Knoxville. I've been there
I guess I
once.
didn't. It's probably so stupid. I didn't think of Knoxville, Tennessee is in the
Yeah.
Appalachian Mountains, but obviously
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. But I just
It
never
feels
put two
more
and
what,
two.
Midwest or something to you? Is that what you mean?
I think it kind of feels more south, just like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's fair.
whereas Appalachia to me feels like
West
southeast.
Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah, like just I don't know.
All right.
But it makes sense. I just like never really put two and two together. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, in this case, we're going to find out that one teenager became the youngest woman ever to be placed on death row. So here are the
that's a
details.
very
Yeah,
rare thing. Yes.
absolutely. The details of the case are as follows. So Christa Pike was born in 1976 in Beckley, West Virginia. I went to WVU. I know tons of people from Beckley. Very kind of like
Well,
it's a city, I think technically, but it's very like how it's like a city, but it's small, and like the people that come, it's like very southern West Virginia as well. So it's like, you're getting the thick of things down there.
right.
It is Appalachian, by the way, Darren. She was the daughter of Carissa Hansen and Glenn Pike. So Carissa and Glenn had a chronically tumultuous relationship, the two of them. After being married for only 1 year, Glenn caught Krista cheating on him and divorced her.
Oh,
And as a result, Krista spent a lot of her childhood kind of neglected by both of her parents. Krista's aunt is quoted as saying that as a baby, Krista would be found in her home as a young baby, quote, crawling around through piles of dog stool all
ooh,
over the house, end quote. And that's just like, that is like really horrific. And it
ooh,
tells the
that's
story that,
neglect.
yeah, not only is the child being neglected, but it sounds like the house is being
House, right. The whole
neglected, the
thing.
dog probably, I would imagine as well. It's really an unfortunate scene to describe. Krista's aunt went on to explain that when her mother realized that that Carissa had begun suffering severe seizures, she decided she wanted to continue partying rather than care for her daughter. So, it sounds like this young girl has health conditions that need attended to. It's just a really bleak description here in West Virginia. Thankfully, Krista's paternal grandmother, of course, that's her father's mother, would frequently help care for her. But sadly, when her grandmother passed away in 1988, Krista attempted to take her own life at just the age of 12.
Oh
It's
God,
so
that's so
heartbreaking.
heartbreaking. That's
It
just
really
like
is.
you're a baby, you're a child. It's just so
Yeah.
sad.
You always we do this show so often, and we give so many details, and we always hope that, like, parents just have the best interests of their children, but like time and time again, you really get a snapshot that parenthood looks different for a lot of different people.
I just read, side note, in New York Magazine for anyone that subscribes, although I'm sure you can get a certain amount of articles for free.
Hmm.
There was a piece about a woman and her daughter. They were in high school and she had like her high school sweetheart, but basically had cyberbullied her own daughter and
Oh
was
my
like bullying her and
God.
tormenting her, and it like affected the whole school. It affected everything, and it
Oh,
was sort of like this Munchausen, like cyber Munchausen, because she
oh
was getting all
yeah.
this attention for being like bullied. Like it
Ugh.
was wild, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
just she's in prison, but just
yeah,
it was
like a
wild. Yeah.
catfish bully almost, or
And
something
it's your
like that.
mom, it's just and the dad had absolutely no idea. Just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. I mean, I think that there's clearly mental illness involved here with the
Sure,
family.
sure.
No one in their right mind would just be harmful for the sake of being harmful, I would hope at least, but
Just like,
nonetheless.
very,
Yeah,
very gravely depressed. Yeah.
absolutely. So after her failed attempt of taking her own life, she received nearly no support or care from the family that she had left, and she was sort of left to recover on her own. The one person that was there for her, her father's mother, passed away, as I said. So really tough conditions, especially at 12 years old. I mean, think about being, preteen and like the
Just
most
having
maybe
no adult in your
developmental,
life. Yeah.
yeah, like the most developmental moments of your life, and you just don't really have an adult there to support you. That's horrible. So, abuse continued to be a common occurrence in Krista's life as she grew older. During an altercation, one of Carissa's boyfriends, her mom, once punched the young girl in the face,
Jeez.
which is really
We're
horrific.
winners here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at first, criminal charges were filed against the boyfriend, but the case was eventually settled out of court. Krista kept some contact with her father despite the neglect throughout her childhood. While staying with her estranged father and his now new family, one of Krista's younger half sisters claimed that Krista sexually abused her. And
Well, she's just
this,
taking out her own pain and abuse on other people. It's just a
exactly,
cycle. It's just a
exactly.
cycle.
I mean, the other thing is, these people are children to some degree. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, but
Yeah.
you do have to sort of weigh the fact that they are children. Is there truth to everything that they're saying here? I mean, there is something to be said about that, unfortunately. Well, this didn't sit well with Krista's father, and he then decided to send Krista away. So here she is again, trying to find. It
Just
sounds to me
avoiding the
like,
problem here.
yeah, and it sounds to me like she's trying to find some community and some family, in her teenage years. And now she's being accused of something that happened and is now being sort of sent away by her family yet again. So, very tragic details here for Krista.
So Krista later claimed that she herself was the victim of several instances of sexual assault throughout her life. This makes perfect sense. This tracks with the profiling that we kind
Yeah,
of
that's
come to
true.
know. It is worth noting that those close to Krista, including her friends and family, doubt these claims. That's also very key, believing instead
Hmm.
that Krista is a pathological liar. I guess in theory that's also possible, but denial is common
Yeah.
as well. I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, either way.
Yeah. And I want to say, even if she is a pathological liar here, like it
There's a
really,
reason.
yeah, like she was clearly conditioned with all of the trauma and the horror that has happened
It's
in
not
her
like she had
life.
stability. Right,
Right.
exactly. And like
And
there was abuse either way. So,
exactly. Thank you for that.
good point. But the time she reached ninth grade, so she's
Yeah,
15-ish,
around there. Yep.
Krista's performance in school had declined significantly. Now, during the 10th grade, Krista spent a year in a juvenile facility where she first developed an interest in the Job Corps. The Job Corps is a government program aimed at helping low-income youth by offering like vocational training and career skills, which is actually really great because I
Yeah.
do think that people overemphasize like the need for everyone to go to college. And I think having an apprenticeship, being an electrician, being a plumber, being a
Oh, yeah.
carpenter are like skills that you don't need to spend 200 grand to go into debt for, that really they can be learned. And so I like
And
learning vocational training. I like that.
and very much needed, and also recession proof,
Yes.
and
Proof.
also
Yes.
AI proof, which is something that we have to start thinking about now in the world of AI.
Yeah. And within the Knoxville chapter, they had a dormitory residence in the Fort Sanders neighborhood where youth could stay to be closer to the University of Tennessee area and have easier access to education and work opportunities. Sounds like a win-win to me.
Yeah.
And Krista joined the Job Corps chapter in Knoxville and began to get involved with her community and kind of meet peers her own age. So
Yeah.
hopefully this will balance a little bit of the abuse that she's experienced early on. Now, this is how she first met a high school junior named Daryl. Now, the two started dating, at which point it's been alleged that together they would engage in occult practices and engage in satanic worship.
Okay.
Totally possible. Those types of rumors. I feel like every kid at some point,
Yeah,
whether it's in like middle school or high school, there's a rumor swirling about someone doing this.
it's true.
You know
And
what
by
I
the
mean?
way,
There's always this rumor.
yeah, and I think you're about to get to it. This was the 80s, so
Right. So this is kind of in the thick of that satanic panic.
right,
Just
exactly.
easy to spread that rumor, Salem witch trial style. So this was a scare tactic that was used by the media with sort of reckless abandon, and thus the students around you when you're bullying kids or whatever is
Hmm.
going to happen.
Yeah.
And the new relationship began to cool off when Krista began feeling jealous of a fellow Job Corps member, a 19-year-old named Colleen. Colleen had spent some time with Daryl, and things were getting a little too close for comfort. Colleen had recently moved to Knoxville from Florida in order to participate in the Job Corps program. And I imagine Krista has no regulation of her emotions. She's jealous. She's
Yeah, potentially.
a little off kilter, obviously, just going to react probably in an explosive way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the thing is too, think about her lifestyle, and I think when you're an influential young person and you don't see real love, and you've been
Yeah.
mistreated, and
You have no
you're being sent
examples.
away, you
And
have no example of how to behave in a situation like this. So it does track to some degree. Well, according to Colleen's mother, her daughter enjoyed caring for disabled children and was
oh,
naturally a very giving person.
it's
As
always
we
that way.
I know. As weeks passed, Krista's suspicions that Colleen was trying to steal Daryl from her began to grow. Friends and family of Colleen have since confirmed that these allegations were far from true.
Hmm.
Daryl later stated later in court that Krista was prone to these major mood swings and unprovoked rage-filled tantrums.
So no wonder all of them believe her to be like this pathological liar
Exactly.
because she's creating these scenarios that Occam's razor says that she probably is making that stuff up. And she
Right.
might not be, but
Who
I
knows? Yeah,
can't blame them
exactly.
for thinking that. Yeah.
Well, when Krista could no longer handle her jealous suspicions, she hatched a plan with one of her classmates, a woman named Shadala. The young women planned to lure Colleen to an old building in an isolated area near the University of Tennessee's agricultural campus. The building, an old industrial plant, was located along a trail, the main part of which is frequented by runners, bikers, and dog walkers. It was not condemned. It wasn't like empty. It wasn't in ruins. It was just like an older building.
Right.
However, there are twists and turns on the trail that are often skipped and tend to be much more secluded. I can think of many trails like this up in Appalachia. I love to
That's a
hike.
little
So,
scary.
yeah, I mean, it's weird because, I live here in Appalachia and, worked here and lived in Maryland, which was still technically Appalachian. And there are a lot of trails and a lot of mountains, and like there have been times where I'm like, that trail looks a little too sus. I think I'm gonna pass on that one because it just kind of winds and weaves into a dark hollow, and I'm like, I think it's because I do the show, Daryn. I'm like, I don't want to stumble upon a body, and feels like the chances are a little higher if I go down that path. So just letting everyone know.
That makes
Well,
sense.
nonetheless, the plant was located along one of those isolated sections of the road. So on January 12th, 1995, Christa, Shadala, Tadero, and Colleen signed out of their dormitory and proceeded to the isolated part of the road. I had
Oh,
forgotten about dorms having to sort of, I don't know if your dorms ever had to
sign
do this.
out and stuff like that.
Sign in and sign
No,
in. Yeah.
but there were things like that, I think, but
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah,
I think when I was in college, it was like in that transitional moment where like you had to sign in and sign out, but then like the next year they had those like electronic IDs, like where you
that's how we
swipe
kind of
into the
started.
building.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. You're so much younger than me. I forgot. That's true.
I'm basically a different generation.
You are. You're so
We had
Gen Alpha.
computers, John.
We had a computer lab, you guys. Well, anyway, the girls had lured Colleen out by offering to make peace with her. Remember, they were all kind of at heads with her because they were all thinking Colleen was trying to steal Daryl away.
Yeah, or
And
at least
actually, they
created that narrative because they hated
exactly,
themselves. Yeah.
yeah, potentially, and actually offered to share their marijuana with her. So this was all very enticing for Colleen. And when the four of them arrived at the secluded location, Krista and Shadala attacked Colleen while Tadero acted as a lookout.
Just the idea of so many people on one person, especially like a
I
young girl,
know.
is so tragic.
It really
Now,
is.
according to WBIR, quote, by Krista's own recollection, Colleen begged to be let go, promising
Mm,
she'd tell no one about what had happened if she could just walk back to Florida. And I said, shut up. I don't want to hear you talking to me. Krista recalled later. You know, it's harder to hurt somebody when they're talking to you. End
wow.
quote.
A quote straight
Which
from Krista. That's crazy.
that, I mean, also like it kind of shows that she had
Some
some sort of
remorse.
feeling in
Yeah.
there. Like she didn't view her as human for the
Yeah.
next, or didn't want to view herself as a monster. It's so hard to even know.
I mean, when I put myself in her shoes, when I think about her upbringing specifically, it's like maybe the craving of like of stability with Daryl and the affection that she's never had in her life is so important to her like sanity
Yeah.
that she will go to any means necessary to what she thinks keep that consistent. But obviously, we're going to see that's not how it went.
Well, for the next 30 minutes, Colleen was harassed, beaten up, and slashed with a box cutter
Wow.
and a meat cleaver.
So they also
Uh,
came prepared, by the way,
yes,
premeditated.
and they knew that they were going to do this, and a pentagram was carved in Colleen's chest. Whether that was because they were practicing satanic rituals or they wanted everyone else to
Just
believe
the
that they were
torture.
practicing that.
Right.
Finally, Krista smashed Colleen's skull with a
Ugh.
large chunk of asphalt, ending her life. And Krista actually kept a piece of Colleen's
Mm.
skull, presumably as a, have like a trophy
People call them
or
trophies. Yeah.
a conquest. She and the three friends abandoned their victim, laying nude from the waist up so as to display the pentagram. Not clear that there was any sexual assault, just that to show this pentagram.
Right.
Now, the next morning, January 13th, just a few
Yeah.
days
Around this time
ago,
of year.
20 years ago, 30 years ago, Colleen's body was discovered by two employees who worked at the plant. Now, this
Mm.
discovery rocked the close-knit community, and it didn't take authorities long to track down a prime suspect. I doubt these kids were overly careful with their
Not at all.
seemed to be a pretty grave decision to make pretty quickly. Krista
Yeah.
had been extremely vocal about showing off the piece of Colleen's skull, which
Hmm.
does make sense because, like, I guess you could keep it for you, but at that age, you want to that's like your conquest. Like she's viewing this as like
Yeah. That's a good point.
something to show off. I don't know. She's
Like,
just
look what I
mom.
did with my life. I'm so crazy and interesting. Like, I
Yeah,
have this piece of a skull.
or not to mess with me kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she'd been vocal about showing off the piece of Colleen's skull to classmates, and her odd behavior was reported to authorities
Right.
pretty quickly,
Right.
which
Because I'm sure somebody was.
I
Sorry.
have
Go
yet to
ahead.
report you, John, but eventually I will.
Please do. I mean, I'm assuming she, like, the kids were like, I'm sorry, what did you say? A human skull? I'm gonna have to
Right.
tell somebody about that.
Yeah, and like a girl our age that we know. Now,
Yeah,
within
weird.
36 hours, the trio was arrested and brought in for questioning, and the authorities already had some damning evidence against them. On the night of the murder, Krista, Shadola, Daryl, and Colleen had all signed out of their
Mm,
dormitory using the facility's logbook. And this showed that all four had signed out together at the same time. However, only Krista, Shadola, and Daryl signed back in, which of course appeared very suspicious, as
mm-hmm.
obviously this was the last Colleen had been heard from. And additionally, police found the missing piece of Colleen's skull
Oh,
in Krista's pocket.
yeah.
Super smart.
Yeah. It sounds like, they really weren't trying to hide any of this. Like, which to me, every time we talk
No,
about
they were
this on
like
the,
proud of it.
yeah. And every time we talk about these killers on the show that do things like this and then talk about it, to me, that signals such a mental illness. Like, you are willing to kill somebody and then talk about it without understanding the ramifications of what you've done. I find that to be completely like,
Terrifying.
completely terrifying and unaware of like the consequences of your actions, which is
Yeah.
scary on its own. Well, soon after their arrest, Krista made a full confession to police, admitting that she and her friends had actually tortured Colleen before her death, but insisted they were merely trying to scare her and it got out of hand. I don't know if you show up with a pocket knife and a meat
Meat
cleaver that
cleaver. Yeah.
you're
A box
really,
cutter. I'm not confident you
or
do
yeah, a
that just
box
to
cutter. Yeah,
went out of hand. You're already three versus one. I think I don't
precisely.
think you need to do anything more than that to scare her.
I agree. Christa, Tadero, and Shadala were tried in March of 1996. The entire process took only a few weeks, and the jury reached a verdict in only a few hours, which is not a good sign if you were the defendant.
Yeah.
Tadero was charged and convicted of Colleen's murder. Tadero received a life sentence plus 25 years with the possibility of parole. I was a little surprised by this because if he was truly just the lookout and wasn't a part of the actual attack, that sounds like a
Unless they
kind of
proved
heavy
in court that
that he
was
was.
premeditated, they all checked out together,
Yeah, good point. Yep.
you
Well,
know?
Shadala, who turned informant, was actually convicted of being an accessory and received a sentence of parole,
Wow.
which is interesting. On March 22nd, 1996, Christa was found guilty of both murder and conspiracy and was sentenced on March 30th to death by electrocution in 1996, Tennessee, by the way, becoming the youngest person on death row. Now, Christa launched, paused, and then relaunched an appeal of her conviction. And we'll have some more details here. Daryn, I know you have spoken extensively about the death penalty, so I don't know if you want to add some things here as we wrap up the
Yeah,
episode.
she's now 47, Krista
Yep.
Pike is, and she's actually the only woman on Tennessee's death row. She's still awaiting execution. It takes like minimum of 18 years to execute a person in this country. Not complaining about that. Plenty of time for appeals and things to change, but her
Yeah.
her applications for appeal have all been denied. And that's, you know, not necessarily incorrect. However, we have to think about, her past as well. Colleen's
Yeah.
mother, understandably, continues to be an outspoken proponent for Krista's continued punishment.
Right.
Um, but this 1990, and I can sort of relate to that, but at the same time, like, well, this person really didn't have anything to go off of when she was a kid. It's not like she wins Mother of the Year either.
Yeah.
But this 1995 murder was not the first serious event connecting the Jobs Corps Center and the University of Tennessee. In December of 1993, just a few years earlier, two Jobs Corps residents were accused of attacking two University of Tennessee students who were
Hmm.
sitting in a car on campus. The male student was badly beaten, and the female student was driven elsewhere and unfortunately sexually assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
Both of the Job Corps students were convicted of the crimes. And due to all the serious incidents with only a 2 year span, the
Yeah.
Knoxville Job Corps dormitory was actually closed in 1995. So, uh, too many instances for comfort, I think, is what that's probably why they
Yeah.
closed.
And as a reminder,
Not that there's any relation or something like that. It could just be a coincidence.
no, there, yeah, exactly. No, that's fair. But, remember, Krista found out about the Job Corps when she was in that juvenile detention center. And so,
Right.
what is the flow of people with maybe
Right.
behavioral problems into this? It kind of doesn't really add up in that way. So,
True.
really tragic story. Our hearts go out to Colleen's mom, of course. And, that's just the way it's going to unfold, unfortunately, if you get jealous, this is how it's, going to happen, unfortunately.
For sure. Absolutely.
So that's this week's
Just a sad
episode,
story.
guys. Let,
Yeah.
let us know what you think on social media. Hit us up at Thrasher, at Carpe Daryn, the Facebook group, and of course on Patreon. Daryn, Ashley, and our let's get to listener shout outs. Sorry, I'm like jumping through here.
Okay. No.
Daryn, Ashley in our Facebook group posted, and I'm really excited to share some thoughts here. She says, "Congrats, Daryn, Carp, and Nadine. I'm so excited for you both and wish you a
Thank
lifetime of
you.
happiness, love, and health." For those of you who didn't listen, Daryn recently became engaged.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
So many other people were excited for you, Daryn. Heather, Jen, a Nadine who is not your soon to be wife also
Oh,
congratulated you. Um,
that's a good clarification.
yeah,
Thank you. I
just to be
needed that.
clear, I mean,
That would have been
maybe it's a
wild.
fake account of her, but nonetheless.
I also could have sworn
Um,
Nadine was the only Nadine in the world, but
that's
hmm,
right. She is in your life, right? There you
that's
go.
right.
On Patreon, we got several messages, including from Denise, who we love,
Mm.
saying, "Oh my goodness, very big congratulations. I was cleaning the house listening and I stopped mid mop and went, Aw,
Aw.
so happy. Does this mean John is going to be the maid of honor?" Great question. Thank you, Denise. Daryn,
He's definitely going to be a maid for sure. I don't know which type of
like a
maid yet, but
housemaid.
yeah, but he'll be something. Just you
Oh,
can
all
guarantee
right.
that. That'll
All
be,
right.
yep, that'll be up there. Also, I very much so appreciate she said mid mop because when you're cleaning and you're in a good flow, I
Oh,
get
for
it.
sure. I totally
I
get
get
that.
it.
Yes, that means business. I mean, she really does care. So that's
Exactly.
amazing. And then, Daryn, of course, patrons like Marty and Paula also sent you messages of love. We
Yes. I
also
loved
asked
it.
people on Patreon to guess what Darren's big announcement was before we dropped last week's episode. Kaylin said,
I love
quote,
this.
John found a man actually hitting on him in the store and they are in love now. Kaylin,
That would be even bigger than my
Kaylin,
engagement, Kaylin. So good
yeah, I
call on
think
that.
you're right. I think you're right. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, listen to episodes from last year around this time, actually, where I thought I was
God,
getting
it's
hit
been a
on.
year.
Yeah, that was a year ago. Yeah, my
Wow.
grocery store
What's
boyfriend
your
who was
plans
not
for
meant to
your
be.
future, John? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I think I mentioned this, but because he's in my phone, we were texting, he keeps popping up as a suggested friend on
Oh
Facebook.
God. Yeah. Oh
I'm
Lord.
like, anyway, moving on
Yeah.
from that. Anyway, but we should shout out Daryn, our Patreon
Yes.
member Megan, who correctly guessed that you got
Good job,
engaged.
Megan.
Yeah. So
What does
that's
that
the
say about John's
rundown.
love life? Yeah, that
I
was
know.
the
What does it say about that? It definitely couldn't be
exactly.
me. So,
Well,
I don't know if you want to speak to that anymore, Daryn, but
no, I
everyone
thank you
loves
for all
you.
the love. I really appreciate it. It was so sweet, so kind. Friend
Yeah,
of the
you guys
show
are
and
sweet.
longtime Patreon supporter Myths posted in the Facebook group saying, "Has anyone else watched the conclusion of the Curious Case of Natalia Grace?" I did, Myths. I finished
Yeah.
watching over the weekend. John Thrasher and Daryn Carp, will you be discussing this on the pod? Once episodes are out. Yes, all of them are out. So, John,
Okay,
no
great.
fucking excuse.
Okay.
I already watched it. I gave him shit on our NMR, and he is going
That's
to
right.
watch it, right, John?
I think so. Do we want to do it on the show? Or are we trying to cover it on the show? I feel like some
Maybe we
people want
should.
us to. Here's the question. Is there true crime happening or is it just
Well,
drama?
sort of in the sense of
Okay.
like
All
the
right.
rights of maybe someone,
Oh, right. Okay.
you know, being the payee that they shouldn't be and getting to
Okay.
live independently. But when someone else is your payee, maybe just watch it and we can discuss. At
We'll
least we could
discuss
discuss it at least loosely. Yeah.
loosely. All right. We'll do that on next week. How many episodes is it, by the way?
Four. Oh, Lord.
Four. I don't know if I can dedicate 4 hours.
Oh,
We'll see
Jesus.
how it goes. But guys, it's a new year. We're posting a lot of new content on Patreon. If you haven't joined the fun over there yet, you can do so for as little as $5 a month. Listen, with Netflix being like $22 a month and
Crazy.
Disney Plus is like 17, you're getting quality content
Quality.
from people that you love, no less. You don't know those people on Netflix and Disney Plus. You don't know
Yeah,
them.
ew.
They're not your parents like we are.
Right. Right.
And you're
They're
getting it
not
from us.
divine beings like John
You know,
and
they're
I.
not Mother God and Father God. No, not at all. And you're getting that from us for literally less than a loaf of bread. What can you beat? Wow.
And we're
That's
not
called
referencing
value.
magic there, but we're not mentioning magic because he is
That's
a loaf
fair.
of bread, but he's more than
That's
five
right.
dollars, but weighs definitely more than a loaf of bread. Just saying.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
bread factory for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But that's called value. And don't say we didn't do anything nice for you, our children. That is
Yes.
patreon.com/shaken and disturbed, or just click the link in our show notes.
Also, if you're on Patreon, we recently posted a link to take
Oh yeah.
our survey. So check it out and
Yeah.
let us know what you love about Patreon, and we'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode. We appreciate all the feedback you're willing to give.
I will say this, I took a little peek at our survey responses. You guys, you're all just so nice. Literally, I'm like the field is like um give us some feedback, like extra notes, anything else you want to say about the show? Like what's the thing you would change? And everyone's like, "You guys are our favorite. Like I really love you. We
So
couldn't live without you." And
sweet.
I'm like, "You guys are too nice. I really love you for that."
That's
But
so
please do
sweet.
take that survey if you can. Daryn,
Yes, it would be
quicker
much
episode.
appreciated.
Yeah, quicker episode than usual, and I'm going to sign off in 2025. Take care and brush your hair. Are you going to stick with yours?
Please be neat and wipe the seat. Goes
I
for
can't believe
John
we're going to do this
specifically.
every week in
Just
2025.
to torture you. It's like a gift.
Love.
I can't give up that resolution.
That's right. Well,
Right.
hopefully next week you're going to have your gift for me and we can open it on the show. All
Yeah.
right.
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I don't want to end up being a case on Shaken and Disturbed. So
Yeah,
we'll
no,
wait.
don't do that.
We'll wait.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
wait. All right. We'll see you guys next time. We love you. Bye bye.
Bye.